F1 is the world's toughest game ever, but last Sunday's Qatar Grand Prix was incredibly exciting this season. It had many surprising moments like Max Verstappen unusually winning the title, well-managed rules, and making everything clear and efficient. However, the most shocking thing about the race weekend was how dangerous it was. The drivers' stories about what happened are almost unbelievable, with one driver vomiting into his helmet. It was so horrible, no doubt, but you might be thinking about what actually happened and what were the reasons behind this. This is what we're going to uncover in today's video, so don't go anywhere. When a driver gets into an F1 car, they're taking a big risk because Formula 1 is one of the most dangerous sports. However, in this situation, it wasn't the cars that were the problem. It was the race conditions. This weekend, especially because the race happened at night, was extremely challenging for the drivers. It challenged the 20 Formula 1 drivers. The super hot track and high humidity made it tough for over half of them. The high humidity and temperatures above 40 degrees, along with the fast corners, made it a big challenge for drivers at the Qatar Grand Prix. They also had to make at least 3 pit stops because of a limit of 18 laps on their tires. As a result, the drivers had to push themselves harder in the race. Max Verstappen won on Sunday. The Pirelli tires didn't perform well at the Lusail circuit, creating a very dangerous situation. Esteban Ocon came in 7th place in a tough race, earning important points for his French team. The race was hard for many because the track got as hot as 37 degrees Celsius. He said in the post-race interview, "I was throwing up by lap 15, 16 for 2 laps. I think," he said after finishing 7th at Alpine, "I was doing that and thinking, shit, it's going to be a long one. Get it under control, just mentally, and just focus on what I've got to try and do. I've never had that in the past. I've always been able to do 2 race distances in the car. That's what I've always been training for, but today it was just the hot air and how hot the engine is from behind the car. I don't think we particularly sealed the cockpit too well. It must have been like 80 degrees inside the car."
Better at the end, less pushing.
Yeah, copy that. Okay, nice and steady on the way in. Sergeant stopped actually for feeling unwell as well. Okay, mate. Well managed in that case, and that's P7. So excellent job.
Yeah, excellent race, guys. The car was on rail on that last run.
After the race, Esteban told his engineer on the radio that he was sick in his helmet. The humid Lusail track, high-speed racing, and strict tire rules made most F1 drivers push hard instead of saving tires, taking a toll on them. That's something that made Charles Leclerc say this track was a nightmare. "This is the toughest race for every driver in Formula 1 of our careers for everyone. No exception. I don't believe the one that says it's not." He added, "Especially with the G-forces, when you have a lot of dehydration, you can drink, but the drink is more of a tea than anything else because it's at 60 C+. So it's extremely difficult to hydrate yourself. And again, with the G-forces, you don't see as well. The track limits we're speaking about are the difference between just centimeters at 280 kilometers an hour. In qualifying, when we're fresh, it's difficult to respect them, but then at the end of the race, it's a nightmare." It was also a tough week for Mercedes too. George Russell said it, absolutely brutal race because he experienced a new level of exhaustion within the cockpit. "By far the most physical race I've ever experienced," Russell said. "I felt close to fainting in that race. I've never experienced anything like it before. I had to ask my engineer to give me encouragement, just to try to take my mind away from it. I do a lot of heat training in the sauna, and so you push your body to the limit, and sometimes you just need to get out of that sauna. And that's sort of how I felt from about lap 20. I opened my visor for the whole race and it was hot air. But it was better than no air. It was brutal. Winners and losers from F1's 2023 Qatar Grand Prix. I was so sick in the car. I wasn't sick, but I felt ill." F1 rookie Logan Sargent, who is going to retire and has no contract for 2024, wasn't able to finish the race. He, along with his teammate Alex Albon, was taken to the medical center for too much heat exposure. He had severe dehydration during the race because he had flu-like symptoms earlier in the week. Albon couldn't even attend post-race media activities. Lance Stroll of Aston Martin mentioned that he had experienced moments of nearly losing consciousness in the car and drifting in and out of awareness due to the conditions. He indicated that this may have played a role in his incurring 2 track limits penalties during the race, which ultimately prevented him from securing a points finish. Stroll also commented on the changes made to the track, with the curbs being painted and the track narrowed, making it challenging to see the curbs while struggling with his condition, leading to difficulties in maintaining a clear sense of direction. Oscar Piastri was lying on the floor and Max Verstappen sat in a corner. They were both so tired that they couldn't make it to the high seats where the Max Verstappen podcast was taking place. Yes, this track was equally challenging for the winning team too. Verstappen believed that the conditions were pushing the limits of what should be allowed. And Oscar Piastri also noted the challenges presented by the weather conditions, suggesting that Formula One was fortunate that the situation didn't escalate into something worse. His teammate Norris, who was third last Sunday, went a step further in mentioning the difficulties and dangers associated with the high temperatures inside the cars. "It's sad we had to find it this way," Norris added. "It's never a nice situation to be in. Some people are ending up in a medical center or passing out, things like that. It's a pretty dangerous thing to have going on. It's not a point where you can go, the drivers need to train more or anything like that. We're in a closed car that gets extremely hot in a very physical race. It's frustrating as on TV it probably doesn't look very physical at all, but clearly when you have people who end up retiring or such in a bad state, it's too much for the speeds we're doing. It's too dangerous." Now let's talk about why this weekend became too tough. The main factor is temperature. The temperatures during the weekend were 5 to 10 degrees higher than what's usually seen at this time of year. If it had been cooler, the racing might have been easier because the tires wouldn't have worn out so quickly. This would have prevented the FIA from having to limit how long each set of tires could be used and would have allowed the drivers to race more comfortably and at their usual pace. So, if the weather had been better, everything might have been fine. When the extreme heat and other challenging conditions came together, it made life really tough for the drivers. The temperature got so high that Fernando Alonso had to ask for water to be poured over him during a pit stop to cool down his seat because it was burning him. So, does the FIA need to take action? Well, maybe not. As I mentioned, this was an exceptional situation and the race will be held at a cooler time next season. Many drivers were relieved that next year's race would take place a few months later, potentially in cooler conditions. The 2024 Qatar Grand Prix is scheduled for December 1st on the calendar, which will mitigate some of the heat-related challenges experienced in this race. I think it'll be better weather to race on this track. Subscribe to our channel for more F1 updates and check out more here.